Join us today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where we discuss the shortstop position heading into the 2024 fantasy baseball season.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my partner, my co-host, my best friend, Matthew Oneil, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Oneil. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. It really helps a lot this time of year. And guess what? If you do decide to, leave that 5-star rating and review, take a screenshot of it, send it to us at fantasymds@gmail.com, or just send it to us on Twitter or Instagram if that's easier for you, and you get a chance to win a spot in our listener league for next season. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel, also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. All right, guys, and before we get into the meat and potatoes, which is shortstop today, I need to talk to you about today's sponsor, FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. And all right, guys, as we get into this, we're still going through our, position review / preview episodes. Maybe it's a little bit early, maybe it's a little bit not, but we know that you fantasy baseball addicts love it the way that we do if you're in here listening this time of year. And, we got shortstop. Matt, where are we starting with this, position that's looking pretty good?
Yeah, let's start off with probably the most exciting name that everybody's probably pining to draft next year, and that's Elly Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds. Elly just monster opening to his career, and then kind of teetered off towards the second half, and honestly, outside of the first month, kind of really fell apart until showing some light at the end of September in the playoffs for you. Elly just, I feel, was somebody that is going to be very exciting for next year, and I think the upside is absolutely legitimate. The thing is, I just hope we don't see what we saw in July, August, and he kind of shows more of the June. And what leads me to say that he will is just based off of his pedigree, right? You look at what he did in his career in the minors throughout, the 4 years that he was there, the 3 years. There's no reason that he can't do it and figure it out, because it was only a small little stint, 200 at bats, 388 at bats. I feel a whole year of spring training under the belt, things are going to look real upside. We're going to start looking at more of hey, look at his 2022, 23 numbers. And that's kind of more of a solid baseline for him in a true season for him. Elly Cruz has freaking 40 home run upside, 30 stolen base upside, if not more, because in 22 he had 47 stolen bases in a single season.
I was gonna say you might be selling him short on those steals a little bit,
right? Even his first year in the bigs, he had 35. Let's go. Elly Cruz has the upside that we all know he can be, and just be literally the next Ronald Acuna if we really go at it. Dude's a big boy, ready to rock. And honestly, I have him as my number 6 shortstop, and that's me being conservative. If I really wanted to just, put it out there and say, okay, he is the guy, then I would have him as my number 3, but it's just harder to do that at shortstop, being that, it's the deepest position in baseball, honestly. So that's where it kind of is limited. But at third, or wherever else the Swiss Army knife is available, he's much higher in those rankings. But Elly Cruz is primed to be solid. I don't know what his ADP is, but I'm sure it's
super high.
I'm sure
it's almost as high as you could think it could be.
Yeah, second round, right? And that is where it's too rich for my blood. But, long story short, let's put it this way. If you draft him, it comes with a nice risk. You're drafting him at a ceiling. But do I think he can attain that ceiling? Probably. So it's just a matter of what your comfort level is and how confident you in the team that you're going to build around this dude.
Yeah. So as we talk about shortstop and Elly here, I kind of before we just blow this whole thing wide open, I want to talk about how we finished last year at shortstop. Right. So last year we had Mookie Betts on Yahoo. I think I don't know if he got enough appearances to have the eligibility everywhere, but he's retaining it on Yahoo. So Mookie Betts was the number one shortstop. Bobby Witt Jr. was 2, Marcus Semien 3, Corey Seager 4, Francisco Lindor 5, Trey Turner 6, Nico Horner 7, Fernando Tatis Jr. at 8, Gunnar Henderson at 9, and C.J. Abrams at 10. And just to throw it out there, Bo Bichette was number 11. So when you talk about Elly De La Cruz, though, now at the shortstop position, he is coming off the board so far, 37 drafts on NFBC. Fourth shortstop off the board, pick 21. He has to be dominant across all categories that to deserve that draft pick. I have Elly as my number 7 shortstop. It's just a splits. Matt kind of gave you the gist of it, but I'll read you verbatim what these stats were. The first half for Elly De La Cruz, 30 games, 126 at bats. He had 28 runs, 9 doubles, 2 triples, 4 homers, 16 RBI, 16 steals with a 325 batting average. Everybody was, saying this guy's a perennial first-round pick next year for fantasy baseball. But then that second half came along. 68 games, 266 at-bats, 39 runs, 6 doubles, 5 triples, 9 homers, 28 RBIs, 19 steals, but he hit 191. Do I think he evens out and performs a lot better, than that 191 batting average season? Yes. But it's just a matter of, can he keep making those little adjustments that we need to see? He's going to be 22 next year. I think he can. It's just an ADP for me right now. If you were able to get this guy as your 4th round pick, yeah, sure, why not? But second round, you're giving up a lot, to get this guy. I'm actually going to move. I'm going to pivot a little bit. We were going to go one way. I'm going to go a different way here. I actually want to do an Elly De La Cruz comp here. I want to talk about Francisco Lindor. The thing, if Elly De La Cruz does what Francisco Lindor did last year, this upcoming season, everybody's gonna love it, right? But Francisco Lindor has already done it. He's shown it. We know what he can do. And I think this is what we should be expecting from an Elly De La Cruz. 160 games for Lindor last season, 602 at bats, 108 runs, 33 doubles, 2 triples, 31 homers, 98 RBIs, 31 steals, and a 254 batting average. I have Lindor as my number 6 shortstop, right over Elly De La Cruz. I just can't justify taking Elly De La Cruz at 21 when Francisco Lindor is going 3 picks later. I picked 24, 5th shortstop off the board when I know Lindor is going to give me that guaranteed production and, Elly De La Cruz more of that dart throw. That's why my first 6 shortstops off the board are all kind of solidified guys, all guys that, you know what you're getting. And then when it comes to, after that, I have Elly De La Cruz, Bichette, and Oneil Cruz, and Gunnar Henderson, and C.J. Abrams all back to back to back to back. And you never really know what you're going to get with any of those guys. But I love Lindor. I think he's solidified. He's a career 274 hitter, so I think there's room to bounce back in that batting average department. Not banking on it, but I think he's a staple, and you could feel safe drafting Francisco Lindor.
I hear you. And the only thing about Francisco Lindor that kind of turns me off, essentially, is the fact that there's a lot of movement and talk on that team with the Mets. They're shopping Pete Alonso around. The team has lost their 2 biggest pitchers that they signed last year. There's a lot of moving parts going into the Mets, and I don't even know if Francisco Lindor is going to be on that team next year. So,
but send him to a contender.
But 100%. But the thing is, though, is he going to follow the rule of new year, new team, where he has a down year, or does he just pick up right where he left off? There's a lot of questions going around surrounding that, and if you look at it. His first year on the Mets, if he does get was not great. He batted 230 that year. He only had 20 home runs, only had 10 stolen bases. If he gets traded at now age 30, are we going to see the same thing? where it's going to take a year to get adjusted. So, like, I want to see what happens with Lindor and the Mets as a whole before I start, really saying, hey, like, this is the guy that I want to draft. Because right now I actually have him pretty low. And I'm going to make this quick because we have a sponsor we need to talk about. But right now I have him at 8, and I'm still, it's not horrible, but I'm still like, okay, I'd rather, if I had to choose between the two around the same part of whether it's Elly De La Cruz or Francisco Lindor, I'm probably going to go with the upside of Elly. But before we move on and we talk about another awesome guy that really just doesn't know how to slide and a bunch of other guys, we do have a sponsor we need to talk about. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in the action than now. This app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including point spread, player props, over and under, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off this NFL season just right. FanDuel, official partner of the MLB. All right. So, with that being said, I do want to also mention something awesome Locked On as a network is doing, and I think you guys are going to be very excited about it as well. Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel. And honestly, it is awesome. You're going to catch us on there. You're going to catch all the big names. It's going to be a good time. But anyway, with that all being said, and me saying that's all being said, I'm going to talk about Mr. Oneil Cruz, the guy I was poking fun at, Mr. I can't slide for the life of me. But let's talk about him. Oneil Cruz honestly was primed to have a season and a half until he unfortunately was sliding into home, I believe, and fractured his leg and sadly put his season to an end. I feel if Pittsburgh was actually contending like they were doing in the first, little over a quarter of the season, Oneil Cruz probably would have been, would have played last year and probably the last month and a half when he was first eligible. But since there was no reason for him to play and they weren't fighting for anything, they pretty much just decided to keep him, down and just, go through a full recovery and said, screw it, let's just go for next year. He's their future of their organization without a doubt. So there's no real rush for them, especially when they're not competing. But in that short little stint in like literally 9 games, like he was literally living up to the hype. 32 at bats, 7 runs, a double, a bomb, 4 ribs, 3 stolen bases, 7 walks to 8 strikeouts, batting .250. I mean, yes, it is a really, really small size, honestly, sample size. And honestly, you probably needed a microscope to probably notice. But at the same time, I look at a lot of things that I really expected him to do. And one, that walk to strikeout ratio, maybe he was really going to turn it on and, show off some plate discipline. The fact that he was hitting so well and just doing his thing really just showed that, hey, the upside was there. Plus his spring looked phenomenal. All signs were pointing go for Oneil Cruz. Low key, he could be another one that can literally do exactly what Elly De La Cruz is going to be doing next year. And he's probably going significantly lower just based off of the fact that he was probably pretty frustrated with his injury last year. Dom, I don't know if you have that ADP, but
I do. Whenever you're ready, I'm going to throw it out there.
Yeah, please.
So, without getting into my whole rant, 12th shortstop off the board, pick 80.
Bro, give me that all day. I know this isn't going to stay. He'll probably move up to about 6 and top 60 pick, go up about 20 picks, 2 rounds. Give me that all day. He's going to be the better pick and the better value over Elly De La Cruz, in my opinion, because there's less likely of the pick to bust based off of the price that you spent on the player with the same ceiling. And I'd rather roll with Oneil Cruz in a redraft.
Yeah, Matt, we're on the same page here with Oneil Cruz. As you were I think you briefly were talking about how, at the end of 2022, he really turned it on. So I have those stats from his last 29 games for Oneil Cruz in 2022. 118 at bats, 19 runs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 6 homers, 19 RBIs, 4 steals, and a 288 batting average. So Oneil Cruz had really started to turn it on, and I think it was 9 games this season. Looked decent in those as well. Sky is the limit. He's 6'7", 215, monster of a man. He hits the ball just as hard as Elly De La Cruz. He throws the ball just as hard as Elly De La Cruz. So you're basically getting the same type of lottery ticket, but you're getting him 60 picks later. I have Oneil Cruz as my 9th shortstop. Once again, I just have guys that have done it and are more staples at this point. I've had it ahead of him. I have Bo Bichette ahead of him as well. And Elly is at 7, but I think Elly and Oneil Cruz are going to be very similar players for the rest of their career, which is why I pick 80. Oh my God, I'll take him there all day, every day, and just reap the rewards. I think Oneil Cruz has something to prove now that he's missed the whole season. He is only going to be 25 years old. I just love everything that this guy does on and off the baseball field. But let's keep things moving here. Matt and I are having a little bit fun with this one. And you know what? Why do I go anywhere else besides my hometown team, my favorite team? Let's talk about Anthony Volpe at shortstop. Now, this was a guy came out of absolute, didn't come out of nowhere, but came out of nowhere to make the team coming into, opening day this past season. Matt, my brother, is the only not only fantasy baseball, but only baseball analysis that I heard calling this out way earlier than anybody else that Volpe's making the team. Matt was on his game with that one. Volpe, mixed bag this season. 159 games, 541 at-bats, 62 runs, 23 doubles, 4 triples, 21 homers, 60 RBIs, 24 steals. This is where things go, downhill with the 209 batting average from Volpe. There's so much more upside than, 209, right? Right now, Volpe's coming off the board as 15 shortstop pick, 137. I don't know how comfortable with him I am as my number 1 shortstop, but if you get him as, your second utility, or if you get him as a bench guy, even better. I have Volpe as my 17th shortstop off the board right now. I could see him moving up maybe a little bit, but even if he has a great spring, he had a monster spring last season too. It's just a batting average. I don't know where Volpe truly winds up as a batting average guy, and I can't draft him too high because if he is only, let's say, a 240 hitter, the 20, 25 homer, 30 steal upside's great, and the runs and RBI should be decent in that Yankees lineup. But, if the batting average is going to drag you down that much, that's why you're kind of building that risk into where he's being drafted this year. And I think the value is decent because the upside is a 265, 270 batting average, with all those other 4 categories being, pretty much above and beyond. I do like Anthony Volpe going into next year.
I hear you. I actually had if you watched this in the offseason, I had a lot more like expectations for him in terms of, where I thought he was actually going to do just based on the fact that I had a feeling he was going to get the call. And it ended up a little disappointing. I looked at him where, I really felt his batting average wasn't going to be as atrocious as it was because in 2022 he batted 249, and in 2021 he batted 294. I just really didn't foresee this being this bad. But hey, when you hang out with, I guess, Giancarlo Stanton, you learn some bad habits. But, I don't think this is his end all be all in terms of this is his future batting average. I think it comes back up to the 250, 260 range for next year, possibly even better because he has shown plate discipline in his minor league career where, even in 2022 where he had a lower batting average, he still had a little over 50%, walk to strikeout. And then in 21, it was 78 walks to 101 strikeouts. So I believe the plate discipline was there. It was more of him adjusting to obviously a better class of pitching, which is tough to do. And at only 22 years old, the young man just had a lot to just deal with in terms of adjusting to the bigs at a younger age. It was kind of not only forced to play probably a little bit earlier than probably he should have, but also forced to play in New York a little early probably got to him too.
Yeah.
So I feel like he may take 2 to 3 years to really, show exactly what his true upside is. But I think next year is a get right year, and you're not going to have to pay a very nice premium for him. So why not take that dart throw? So with that being said, I have another guy I want to talk about, but I have one last break for you. All right. I have to find a new transition thing because with that being said, it's just being used way too much for me. So yeah, let's talk about Mr. Bo Bichette. Bo has just been so annoying for me, and there's a few reasons why. Over the last couple years, we're all chasing 2021, right? Where he just had this mega season, and we were just like, "Yo, this kid's him. He's gonna break out." This kid's like him now. He's just gonna be a top 12, top 15 pick every year. But last year left you desiring more. Batting average was there, but the power numbers weren't there. The stolen base numbers weren't there. And that is a significant difference. Enough of a significant difference where, you could call him a bust based off of what you paid for him in drafts. Last year, he was going in 2022, he was going in what, like pick first round, top 5 pick, I believe.
He was going up there, yeah.
Yeah, and then this year he still was going in the first 2 rounds, and the batting average came back up. Well, never really lost it. It was 306 this year, which was phenomenal. But home runs were still in the 20. The stolen bases were 5 this year versus trying to chase that 25 stolen base numbers. And the runs and ribbies were way down too because the team as a whole, I just feel just underperformed as well. And just he did not benefit from anything, unfortunately. Bo is an interesting case. I'm looking at Bo next year where I think he'll probably be at a value. Where's he going, if you don't mind me asking so far early?
I got you, brother. He's 7th shortstop off the boards to pick 36.
That's still a little too rich for my blood. Like, honestly, like I might post him down as a bust just based off of, what you're paying a premium for him when, we have guys like Oneil, Cruz and Lynn and other guys we'll probably talk about throughout this podcast that I probably will rather pay for because I could get a guy that is kind of more of a sure thing. With Bo even repeating what he did last year, he's not really contributing enough for him to be worth the 32nd pick or 36 pick or whatever you said. And, even if he doesn't get you 5 more home runs, we say he hits 25, but he only gets to what, 10 stolen bases? That pick is a bust and a flop. Like batting average is great, but okay, runs and ribbies aren't going to probably be where it is, and neither is those other 2 categories. What's the point of drafting him that high? I'd pick somebody else, in my opinion, and that's why I'm going to avoid Bo at all costs at that price.
Yeah, I have Bo at 8 at shortstop. I think the legit upside is basically what we saw in 2022, because in 2021, coming off the COVID year, the Blue Jays are still playing in those minor league ballparks, and that's why Vlad had the monster year and Bichette had that monster year. The thing is, Bo hits the ball really hard, so I think closer to 5 to 28 home runs are legit. The runs and the RBIs depends on how that team around him plays. The Blue Jays are a pretty strong team. They still have, quite a few good names in that lineup. So I think those could bounce back as well. The thing is the steals. Bo Bichette's actually not super fast. He's not like blowing anybody away with the sprint speed. So I don't think the steals are the 25 we saw in 2021. I think it's somewhere between the 13 we saw last year and the 5 we saw this year. So if he evens out around 8, that's great. Batting average super legit. Bo Bichette's a great overall hitter. I think he could hit 300 consistently. So if you're okay with, pretty much what you saw in 2022, I think that's similar to what we're going to get this next upcoming season. The value's just tough. The value's tough as pretty much your 3rd round pick. A guy that's not going to really get much steals. The average and home runs are going to be solid, and the runs and RBIs, if you're around 70 and 70 this year, that's kind of your floor with Bichette there. So I don't know if he's somebody that I'm targeting, but he's a strong baseball player, a good fantasy player. Let's keep things pushing here, and I actually want to talk about somebody interesting. I want to talk about Ha-Seong Kim. The thing with Ha-Seong Kim is he was really good for a long stretch, this season. but he's interesting to me because I think he's going really high right now. And I'm not really, about it. The 11th shortstop off the board, pick 80.27. So he's actually going a smidge ahead of Oneil Cruz. And, I'm just not really okay with it. It was a strong year this year. If you heard us, we were on the Padres podcast. I think it was the offseason, Matt, or very early in the season. And I was
early in the season.
Yeah, and I was talking about Ha-Seong Kim and how he's underrated. But 152 games for Ha-Seong Kim, 538 at bats, 84 runs, 23 doubles, 17 homers, 60 RBIs, 38 steals, and he hit 260. I almost think that's a career season for Kim. He's still only going to be 28 next year, but I don't know if he can live up to the hype. I have Kim closer to my, 17th, 18th shortstop off the board. I'm just not really buying into the breakout year. I think the speed's legit. But you know what? He's not really helping you in home runs. The RBIs at 60 aren't great. If that batting average drops down to, closer to his career average at 245, what is he really helping you in runs? Yeah, and steals? And that's really about it. So I'm out on Kim. I'll take the Oneil Cruz, the Bogarts, the Volpes, even the Dansby Swanson guys that are going after him, because 38 steals in today's day and age, it's good, but it's not elite. It's not that Elly De La Cruz, that Nico Horner upside, of 50 steals. But 38's good. I'm not going to just take Ha-Seong Kim for his 38 steals, though. Although I do love him, and is a great player, just not with the ADP at the moment.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, I don't know if if I'd actually draft the dude. In all honesty, I just, with this position specifically, if I'm walking out of a draft with him as my starting shortstop, I'm feeling really depressed, and I feel like I had a really bad draft. Like, let's put it that way. I wouldn't mind taking a dart throw on it and see if it's legitimate, but I don't know what his ADP is. I don't know if you said it or not.
I did mention it. 11th shortstop off the board, pick 80.27. And then Oneil Cruz, the 12th shortstop off the board, is pick at 80.73. So I'll take Oneil Cruz over him every day, all day.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at it. That is the fuggliest ADP I've ever had for somebody. I don't believe in it whatsoever. I'm actually kind of disappointed he's going that high, because I feel like that's just such a waste of a pick, that you're pretty much just putting yourself in a negative position right there, and you're not going to benefit from that whatsoever. But anyway, I can't talk about it. And I mean, I swear to God, I feel the haterade cup getting bigger and bigger about this. But I got to move on. I'm going to talk about Mr. Dansby Swanson, and we all know how I feel about Dansby, but you got to look at it as a whole, and I got to stop being show biased against him. But last year was a weird season, and I'm kind of coming around on him a tad. So, one, he pretty much followed the rule: new year, new team, and still managed to perform actually pretty well outside of pretty much the batting average. You look at it: 565 at bats, 81 runs, 25 doubles, 3 triples, 22 bombs, 80 ribs, 9 stolen bases, and batted 244. Now, honestly, you look at those numbers as a whole, and I'm not really mad at them, especially since, you know what? He came in clutch at times. But other times, he really wasn't just the greatest, everyday play for you. He just had a bunch of hot stretches, which I feel next year, is going to be a little bit more consistent. I feel the batting average is probably going to come up back into the 260 range and possibly see that 275 range. And I feel like with this team really being hot and heavy, trying to bring in an Ohtani, trying to bring in and trade for these other players, they're going after and being aggressive after Soto. I feel that if the Cubs, bring in a little bit more talent, Dansby Swanson is going to benefit, and, is probably going to have a much better year. And my hate is disappearing right now. I have him currently ranked as 13, and I'm a little bit hesitant to even rank him at 12 at shortstop, just based off of the fact that if this team does bring in that talent, Dansby Swanson is going to sure benefit and could be a serious value for next year.
Yeah, I like Dansby. Don't hate him. ADP right now has him as the 14th shortstop off the board, pick 135. I have Dansby as my 15th shortstop off the board. Not much love or hate either way for Dansby, but he's solid. He's not bad. If you have him as, a utility bat or, maybe even a bench player, I think the runs and RBIs are legit. The home run potential is right where it's been the last, 3 years. The high of 27, the low of 22. I think that's spot on. Dansby's actually fairly quick. He's, not in the top tier of, when it comes to sprint speed, but he's not, he's above the middle. So I think we could see closer to, the 18 steals that we stored last year. I definitely would love more than the 9 that we have. But that being said, I like Dansby. This is our little quick, preview for, next season, a little review of this season. Once again, that's all for today. Make sure you're locked on for the next episode with our positional rankings. But guys, until next time, see you.